My name is Jack, a 32-year-old man raised in a single-parent household. My parents divorced when I was in elementary school, and the reason was my father's infidelity. My father was always frequenting adult entertainment establishments, and no matter how angry my mother got, he wouldn't stop. Eventually, he had a child with one of the women from those places, and my mother was furious. I'm sure she was heartbroken, but it seemed like her anger outweighed her sadness. She said that she was done with this worthless man, and took my hand to leave our home. But we had nowhere to turn to. My maternal grandparents, my mother's parents, had passed away young due to illness. So, my mother couldn't rely on her parents. That's why my mother and I started living together in a small apartment. Since my mother didn't have much education, she couldn't land a well-paying specialized job. Therefore, she juggled 2 part-time jobs to make ends meet. I knew my mother was struggling, but I lashed out at her once because I was hurt by the teasing from my classmates. A classmate, Mike, who had been with me since elementary school, always looked down on me as the poor kid. Well, the poor kid came to school today. Everyone run. Poverty is contagious. If we don't run, we'll all become poor too. Why do you say things like that? It's as if you're treating me like a germ. Shut up. You're a poor person, so just live miserably. You should be ridiculed and cry about it. What did you say, you jerk? Oh, getting violent, are we? That's why I hate people with bad upbringing. Because poor people have rough hearts. It's normal for them to lash out at someone, right? Mike was a really infuriating guy. I wanted to get away from people like him as soon as possible, but we ended up at the same middle school. I thought that if he had money, he would go to a private middle school, but it seemed like Mike had failed to get into one. So, I guess that was why he was in public school. There was no one poorer than me in middle school, so Mike and his gang targeted me again. I was laughed at for my plain-looking lunch and for wearing ragged clothes. So, I blamed my mother. I said it was her fault we were poor, but I regretted it as soon as I said it. My mother looked deeply hurt and kept saying that she is sorry to me. Indeed, my father was a jerk, but he was a good earner. He probably vented his job frustrations in those adult places. I sometimes resented my mother for our destitute life after leaving my father. But then I realized my mother wasn't eating much. She prepared plenty of food for me, but she barely ate any herself. I wondered why, but as I grew up, I understood she was doing it for my sake. That's why I regretted saying such harsh things to her. My mother, worn out by years of hard work, including night shifts, eventually became bedridden. By the time I was in high school, she could barely get up, so I took on most of the household chores. Every time she apologized, it felt like a tightening pain in my chest. I realized I had been too dependent on her. After graduating from high school, I started working. One day, on my way home from work, I bumped into Mike, who had become a college student. He ridiculed me for not going to college and working instead. Well, so you didn't go to college and are working now. Guess the best you can do is be a low-wage laborer. It suits someone raised in a single-parent household like you. People like me, from wealthy families, go to college and even get fancy cars. Oh, is that so? Well, I'm satisfied with my life, so it doesn't matter what you think. Oh, what are you bragging about? Just a casual employee trying to act tough. In this world, college graduates rule. Low-life high school grads like you should just trudge through the mud. The gap between us will only widen. One day, I'll work for a multinational corporation just like my dad and make a ton of money. That's a pretty irrelevant story to me. You're just jealous, admit it. Just watch and see. Mike's father worked for a multinational company and made a lot of money. And Mike himself aspired to be like that. I couldn't care less about Mike's future, and frankly, I had no interest in it. It had nothing to do with me, and I thought he should just do whatever he wants. Time passed like that. Every day, I just went to work and did household chores for my mom, and that was all I could manage. Even when I was exhausted, I felt relieved just seeing my mom eat the food I cooked. Although she had gotten somewhat better, it seemed she couldn't exert herself anymore. I was working now, so we could get by without my mom having to work anymore. Above all, I didn't want her to strain herself any further, so I told her not to work. Then my mother said that she was sorry for making you suffer, and she cried. I was the one who felt bad. For my sake, during my growing years, she must have sacrificed even her own food and stylish clothes. Despite having many things she wanted to do, she sacrificed everything for me. Knowing all this, I no longer blamed my mother for our poverty. I regretted the disrespectful things I had said in the past. Maybe I didn't understand it because I was just a kid, but still, there are things that should and shouldn't be said. And now, I've just turned 32. I've had my struggles, but I feel blessed just to be able to celebrate my birthday. To live healthily every day, to wake up the next day, and then to have a birthday. It seems so ordinary, but it's actually a miracle. Because of the hardships, I was just focused on getting through each day. I had no idea what tomorrow would bring. Back in elementary school, I was always part of the scramble for seconds during lunch. I was that hungry, and I suffered from hunger. Of course, when I got home, I would devour my food. The ingredient-less pasta my mom made was my favorite. I hardly ever ate meat, so my growth must have been quite stunted. Now, I'm of decent height and weight, but as a child, I was quite skinny. One day, after finishing work, I returned home. At home, my mother, who had recovered a bit, greeted me. Recently, she had recovered enough to cook, and she was making things I liked. I told her she didn't have to try so hard, but it seemed to be a diversion for her. So, I let her do as she pleased. While my mother was cooking, I was cleaning my room while looking at my phone. Then, I got a phone call. It was from Mike. He had been persistent about getting my phone number, so I gave it to him once, but I braced myself, wondering what it was about. Hey, Jack, how are you? I've got something to talk about. Is now a good time? What do you want? Well, you see, I'm organizing a mixer soon. There will be flight attendants from Arabian Airlines. They're all cute and stylish. Since you're just a casual employee, you must be free, right? I saw you at the station the other day, looking totally idle, so I'm inviting you. Well, you'll just be the wingman, though. Play your part well. There will be 4 guys including us and 4 girls. But being the bottom feeder that you are, you probably won't get much attention. Haha. I see. So, when is it? It's kind of sudden, but next Saturday. You seem to have a lot of free time, so you can come, right? Well, I'm free on Saturday, so I can make it. Great. It starts at 6 p.m. Meet us at Restaurant AM. All right, got it. Mike was very condescending and belittled me, even blatantly calling me a wingman. I thought he was incredibly rude, but he's always been that kind of person. Expecting manners from Mike was probably too much to ask. I found it annoying, but I decided to go, thinking it might turn into an interesting situation. When the designated Saturday arrived, I got ready around 4 p.m., changing my clothes and preparing to leave the house. By the time I finished, it was already 5 p.m., so I took my time getting to Restaurant AM, where I'd arrive at a good time. I took the train, and when I walked from the station to the restaurant, it was 5:45 p.m. I was a bit early, but decided to wait in front of the restaurant. At 5:50 p.m., Mike and the other guys arrived. They were dressed in what seemed like expensive, high-end fashion. I wondered if they were wearing brand-name clothes. Wow, what's with that outfit? So lame. Excuse me, you can't afford anything better, coming to a mixer in such a tacky outfit. Are you okay in the head? You'll surely be avoided by the girls. Well, they'll probably be fighting over me, though. The other guys laughed raucously, making me think they were just like Mike. Mike had the most vulgar laugh among them. I didn't think my outfit looked that poor, and I wondered why they had to belittle me so much. I wasn't bothering anyone, nor was I making anyone uncomfortable. Anyway, I followed Mike and the others into the restaurant. After 6 p.m., the girls arrived. They were flight attendants from Arabian Airlines, all tall and slender. It's like models. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's fine, it's fine. Come on, sit here. So, you're Emily, Jennifer, Catherine, and Lily, right? Yes. Wow, you all are so cute. You all work for Arabian Airlines, right? Yes, we're all colleagues. So, you're all the same age, then. We ordered drinks. While waiting, we started introductions, with the girls going first. I'm Emily, working for Arabian Airlines. I'm 25 years old. I'm Jennifer. I was born in March, so I'm still 24, but we're all colleagues. Wow, you're all so young. Max, Johnson, myself, and Jack here are all 32-year-old old men. Sorry for being old guys. Okay. Mike seemed particularly old-fashioned and creepy. I was sure the flight attendants must have been thinking it was gross. Their faces seemed strained. The other guys also said weird things, confusing the flight attendants. I wondered what they would do if they were accused of harassment. Even if they didn't intend to, the girls must have found their comments unpleasant. Then it was the guys' turn for introductions, and Mike gave a confident and lengthy self-introduction. I'm Mike, 32 years old and working in a trading company. I actually wanted to work for a multinational company, but a trading company isn't bad either. At this age, I'm already earning an annual salary of $80,000, so I can buy anything I want. Look, my watch today is Bulgari, and my shoes are Armani, and my hat is Gucci. Nice, right? Do you girls have any favorite brands? I'll buy them for you sometime. Ask for anything, just kidding. Internally, I was thinking, so gross. Mike, despite being only 32, sounded like a creepy old man in his 50s, with his relentless fawning. He was decked out in a mix of brands, which honestly made my eyes hurt. At least some coordination would have been better, but with a different brand for each item like his hat and shoes, it just looked odd. I wasn't sure if it was my lack of fashion sense or Mike's, but I definitely thought it was weird. Then, Mike pointed at me and burst out laughing. This is my classmate, Jack. Unlike me, he's at the bottom of the barrel. Grew up in a single-parent household, poor, and only finished high school. Hilarious, right? Hey, and he's a casual employee at his age. I see him at the station sometimes, looking so idle and envious. Oh, how nice it must be to have so much free time. Then, the flight attendants swarmed around me, saying things like, "Come on, Mike, what are you talking about? There's no way this man is a casual employee. Excuse me, why don't you say anything, Mr. Iran? When is your next first-class trip to Dubai?" Next week. Oh, is that so? I'm looking forward to seeing you on board again. Thank you for always flying with us. Mike seemed utterly clueless about what was happening. The other guys were also taken aback, staring at me. I was suddenly surrounded by the 4 flight attendants, creating an unexpected harem scene. Mike worked in a trading company, and the other guys were from megabanks and such. They couldn't fathom why someone like me, whom they thought was at the bottom, was being fawned over by attendants from the prestigious Arabian Airlines. But in reality, I'm far from being at the bottom. It's Mike and the other guys who think that. I'm actually the chairman of a certain company. You guys thought I was a casual worker, but I'm more like semi-retired. Actually, I'm the chairman of a company. What? Seriously? You know Global Food Corporation, that's my company. That one that's been doing incredibly well recently. The one started by a young entrepreneur that surpassed major food manufacturers in just 3 years. Yep, that's the one. I worked in a food processing factory after high school and used that experience to start my own food company. We may not be as well known as the major players, but our sales exceed theirs. How much do you make, then? My executive compensation is about $10 million. I used to make a bit more as the CEO, but I'm not that strapped for cash. The company's profits are more important, and it's not good for executives to be overpaid. 10 million. Mike nearly fell off his chair with his overreaction. The other guy's eyes were wide open. Seeing that I was not a bottom dweller but a successful individual, their faces turned red, perhaps out of frustration. I didn't intend to boast about my income, but since they mocked me, I felt the need to respond. Mike always saw me at the station and assumed I was a casual employee, but in reality, I had handed over most of the company's management to President Smith and became the chairman. I'm not sure about other companies, but becoming chairman freed up my time effectively. And it also allowed me to take care of my mother, who had been sickly. She's healthier now, but when I was heavily involved in work, I had to leave her care to housekeepers. But since she raised me, I wanted to take care of her myself, so I switched to working remotely and occasionally visited the office. But how could you start a company? Even if you worked at a food processing factory, you couldn't have had the expertise. That story about being the chairman must be a lie, right? It has to be. No, it's not a lie. Why would I tell such a pointless lie? I'm the founder and current chairman of Global Food Corporation. When I said I wanted to start a company, people who cared about me at the factory, like President Brown, invested in my idea. Really, I was well liked at the factory because I worked hard, so when I shared my dream of owning a company, President Brown and some clients invested. That's how I got to where I am today. So, it's actually you. Yeah, I don't appear in the media, so nobody really knows my face. Being shy, I had always declined media interviews. Also, my face isn't on the company's website. So, no one knew I was associated with Global Food Corporation. But it was different with these flight attendants. My company exports products to Arab countries, and occasionally I travel to Dubai for work. That's why I frequently fly with Arabian Airlines. The comfort on their flights is top-notch, and I always enjoy my journeys in the sky. Since I'm practically regular, the flight attendants recognize me. But there's another reason why they know I'm the chairman of Global Food Corporation. Once, Emily accidentally spilled wine on me, but I didn't get angry. Oh no, I'm so sorry, sir. I apologize profoundly. It's okay. Was it turbulence? But my shirt is wet now. I'll compensate for it. No need, really. But it should be fine with cleaning. How should we do for you, then? Just send a cleaning bill to my company. Here, this is my company. If you mention Chairman Jackaron, they'll understand. Chairman, I'm so sorry. The shirt was quite expensive, but I didn't want to make Emily feel bad, so I refused compensation. It cleaned up nicely, and I was happy to have the cleaning cost reimbursed later. Anyone can make mistakes, and I don't blame others for them. There might be passengers who'd yell in such a situation. But the attendants are human, too, and mistakes can happen on a turbulent flight. Since then, they remembered me as Chairman Iran, and I started getting remarks like, "Have a good trip, Mr. Iran." Since then, we've thought of Chairman Iran as very kind gentleman. But why did you stay silent about being the chairman? Aren't you upset about being ridiculed by Mike and the others? Yeah, you're such an important person, and it doesn't bother you being talked about like that. Well, let those who want to talk. They thought they were calling a wingman, but it turns out they were the wingmen themselves. Haha, that's right. What the heck, man? Getting all high and mighty. So you were looking down on us all along. You guys started by looking down on me, right? I don't get why you're mad. Are you just upset? Enough. Let's get out of here, guys. Fuming, Mike and the other guys left the restaurant. They must have been upset about losing the spotlight they thought they'd have. I didn't come here to be the center of attention, but being surrounded by the girls must have irked them. After that, we finished our meal and left the restaurant. Now I may be a chairman with a substantial salary, but my life has been full of struggles. At the food processing factory I joined after high school, a mean senior, Brian, always harassed me. Once he learned I was from a single-parent home, he scorned me, accusing me of likely stealing products. One day, there was a discrepancy in the product count. While processing, we ran short of fish fillets. Then Brian accused me. I must have stolen a fish, there's no doubt about it. Despite it being impossible to stuff fish fillets in pockets or bags, Brian rummaged through my work clothes and bag to check for the missing fillets. Eventually, it turned out someone else had accidentally thrown a fish into the trash, but Brian never apologized to me. I sometimes wanted to quit because of people like him, but the experienced part-time ladies and President Brown were very kind. Knowing I was struggling with poverty, they occasionally brought me home-cooked side dishes or shared products with me. I had never been treated so kindly before, so I was moved to tears. It also made me realize that eating is essential for living. The dishes the ladies cooked and the products President Brown gave me were all delicious. Eating them at the dinner table with my mom, saying how tasty everything was, I realized that food can change people. I wanted to create more delicious food to make people across the USA smile. And eventually, I hoped to bring joy to people around the world, which led me to start a food company. When I shared this idea with President Brown at the factory where I worked, he said it was a great idea. He even offered to support me with funding if I was truly committed. Furthermore, clients I had connections with also helped me out, and I managed to establish the company. Initially, our products didn't sell at all, but when we developed easy-to-prepare items, they became a hit among working mothers and parents raising children. Considering the growing number of working women who need quick meal solutions, this was a timely success. As my mother gradually regained her health, she also gave me advice. Her opinions, being a cooking enthusiast, were invaluable, and our ready-to-use series turned out to be a huge hit. In countries with larger families, the need for cooking in bulk is significant. In the USA, having 3 kids is considered a lot, and 4 is like, wow, those parents are amazing. But globally, there are many families with even more children, and they are often in poor conditions. So, they can't always afford to feed their entire family delicious meals. I launched an international version of the ready-to-use series with affordable and tasty products made from local ingredients, suitable for cooking in large quantities. Surprisingly, it was a hit overseas too. Even ingredients that were previously discarded were turned into delicious meals, increasing our shipments. Since then, I've been developing various unique products. I've created snacks rich in protein and calcium, and guilt-free foods for late-night cravings, targeting dieters. These products became popular among office ladies and were even featured in women's magazines. I want everyone to eat deliciously and stay healthy. Having been starved for food as a child, I think I have a strong attachment to food. Now, I'm passionate about creating delicious foods. I plan to keep developing new products in the future. For instance, environmentally friendly products and those focusing not just on health but also on beauty. Also, I want to contribute to society through my food company. Supporting developing countries with food issues and developing products using local agricultural produce are just some of the ways. Through these initiatives, I aim to bring smiles and health to people worldwide. And ultimately, I want to lead a fulfilling life myself. I truly believe that managing a food company allows me to enrich my life while contributing to society. Thanks for your hard work. Here's dinner for today. Wow, it looks delicious. Your favorite, cheese-less mac and cheese. Brings back memories. The mac and cheese my mother served me had no cheese in it. It was her unique recipe, sparing even the cost of cheese. It had onions, which were always in our fridge. My mother always said onions were good for health, so she made sure to buy them regularly. My mother felt that even buying cheese was too extravagant, so she hadn't bought it since the divorce. Instead, she put onions in her version of mac and cheese. The seasoning was only thick cream sauce. It made me realize that food isn't just about following recipes, it can be flexible. For instance, fried chicken doesn't always have to be made with chicken. It could be inexpensive pork or anything available at home. I started thinking that housewives and house husbands who cook could break away from traditional concepts. That's why I started developing products that could be easily prepared with ingredients already at home. In a way, my mother played a huge role in creating my hit products. She always said she hadn't done anything, but I owed to her for getting this far. One day, I flew with Arabian Airlines again. I was returning to the USA from a business trip. Someone winked at me on the flight. It was Emily, the flight attendant. She seemed interested in me, stealing glances my way. I, too, had been interested in Emily and hoped to get closer to her. Later, at the airport, she approached me, pulling her trolley, and invited me to dinner. Having never been asked out by a woman before, I wondered if I was dreaming. But Emily's eyes were earnest. "I'm so glad you came. I've always wanted to get closer to you," she said. "Really? That's nice to hear," I replied. "Thank you for being so kind when I made that mistake. I've liked you ever since that incident," she confessed. "Like, as in love? Yes, I've fallen for you. Please, would you go out with me?" "What, really? Am I not good enough because I'm just a flight attendant?" "No, it's not that at all. It's just, are you sure you want to be with someone like me? It's because it's you. Please, let's date seriously." I was astonished by her confession. Sure, I hadn't gotten angry when Emily spilled wine on my shirt. Mistakes happen, and getting angry doesn't help. But she saw me as kind. I never thought of myself as particularly kind, nor did I consider myself mean. People who are cruel often lack self-confidence. Like Mike. I heard from other flight attendants that Mike was still hosting mixers. But his arrogant attitude meant he wasn't popular with the ladies. No matter how well off or employed at a trading company, no one wants to be with someone with such a personality. My relationship with Emily began, and I eventually introduced her to my mother. Mom adored her, treating her like a daughter. Since dating Emily, my life changed significantly. Having a girlfriend brought a sense of security, positively affecting my work and daily life. Every day felt purposeful, filled with motivation. Being with her naturally brought more smiles and a sense of peace. Our dates were rare due to our busy schedules, but they were always enjoyable, and time flew by. Every outing was so fun that parting was always regrettable. Emily, being a busy flight attendant, meant that I had to adjust my work and personal time to make room for moments with her. Even though becoming a chairman allowed me more freedom than before, I was still very busy. One day, when I proposed to Emily, she expressed her desire to become a full-time homemaker to support me. Leaving Arabian Airlines, a job she had worked hard to get, must have been a huge decision. But I was thrilled that she wanted to be a full-time homemaker to be with me. As my mother's health had fully recovered, Emily and I decided to live together in a high-rise apartment near my family home. In reality, our family home wasn't the shabby apartment many thought it was, but a luxury apartment. However, I assumed my classmates still believed I lived in the old, rundown place. A year after we started living together, Emily and I got married. We had our wedding in Hawaii. My mother was overjoyed, crying tears of happiness, and Emily's parents were also very happy. She was their beloved daughter, and I was determined to cherish her forever. After our marriage, Emily and I led a life that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. She became a wonderful wife, dedicating herself to managing our home. Though I was often engrossed in my work, Emily's constant support enabled me to keep pushing forward. Eventually, we were blessed with a child. When our son was born, I was so moved that I cried tears of joy. Despite being new to parenting, Emily devoted herself entirely to raising our child. I feel incredibly fortunate to be married to Emily. We occasionally visit my mother with our son, and she always greets us with a gentle smile. All the hard work over the years felt truly rewarded. My name is Michael, a man in his 20s who dropped out of high school. I'm going to talk about my past and some recent events. My family was extremely poor. Both of my parents were often ill and not in good health, leading to frequent absences from work and thus low earnings. Moreover, they both worked part-time jobs, so it's probably more accurate to say we were living in extreme poverty. We had 2 younger brothers at home, making it even harder to get by with our parents' part-time incomes. Sometimes, our neighbors would share some rice with us, but those moments made me feel utterly miserable. While other families managed without needing to receive rice, I often wondered why we were so impoverished. I sometimes thought it would have been better if they hadn't had me, given our poverty, but such thoughts were useless. Since I was already born, there was no point in thinking about it. We had to live desperately, struggling to survive, even if it meant crawling and working just to eat. That's why my middle school days were absolutely terrible. I was constantly mocked and ridiculed by a wealthy boy in my class named Chris. His father worked for a trading company and seemed to be making a lot of money. Chris was in a public middle school, having spent his earlier years in elementary schools abroad. During French lessons, he'd show off his proficiency, flaunting his pronunciation skills, which I found incredibly arrogant. But I couldn't compare to Chris in either academics or sports. He was smart, excelling in all subjects besides French, and on top of that, he was a great soccer player, popular among the girls. Even Emily, the class beauty and the school's queen, seemed smitten by Chris. Emily had a bit of an older sister vibe, and I never heard her talk about the type of guy she liked. She didn't seem to engage in romantic gossip like the other girls, which made her seem somewhat cool to me. Chris appeared to have a crush on Emily, but he seemed reluctant to confess his feelings. He acted as though it was natural for all girls to come to him, which I found repulsive. I despised his arrogant attitude and silently cursed him in my mind. Chris insulted me even more, constantly calling me poor or low class. "Hey, isn't your uniform frayed? Aren't you going to fix it? Well, I guess someone as low class as you can't afford new things. Both your parents work part-time, right? If I were you, I'd get a new one right away. But you, Michael, you'd probably wear clothes even if they're torn. How miserable. That's the life of the lower class for you. So what? It's not like I'm bothering you, Chris. Just leave me alone, will you? How dare you talk back to me, you poor loser? Do you know who I am? I'm the son of an elite businessman. I don't want to hear such nonsense from someone as dirt poor as you. But the impressive one is your father, not you, Chris. You're just a middle school student who hasn't turned anything. Like a small man acting arrogantly through borrowed authority. Pathetic. What? Say that again. Your parents look poor and dirty, almost like homeless people, and you probably don't even bathe, right? That shabby apartment you live in probably doesn't even have a bath. Ahaha. Poor people can't even lead a basic cultural life. What a masterpiece. Enough, I'm going home. Chris's harassment about my frayed uniform was incredibly annoying. He bragged that his family was wealthy enough to buy new things immediately, which was probably true. He would carelessly throw away things like erasers in the school trash bins, even if they were still usable. To me, it seemed wasteful to throw away things that were still functional. One day, Chris casually threw away an eraser. It was more than half used, so I quietly picked it up. Seeing this, Chris burst into laughter. "Oh wow, have you started picking up trash now? You're just like a homeless person. Michael, you're the epitome of poverty. You're surely headed towards being homeless. Here, take this eraser, I'm giving it to you. Oh, do you want this half-eaten lunch too? You always have just a single bun. You probably can't even afford proper bread. My family only eats the finest bread. Cut it out. Why are you always so mean? Chris, you are really messed up." "You're defending Michael, huh? Do you know who I am? I'm the son of an elite. I too will become an elite in the future. Just shut up. I won't be silent. I hate people who are as mean as you. Even if you're good at academics and sports, you don't deserve respect. Instead, I respect Michael, who is a better person. He always takes the initiative in tending the flower beds." "Hey, that's enough. Don't make yourself a target for Chris. Just forget about me." "Oh, so you respect this trash more than me? That's funny. He's a useless poor guy who can only tend flower beds. A person who's useless in studies and sports is unnecessary in this world. People like me are what society needs. Ha 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 ha. Just shut up. All of you. That's enough, Michael, let's go over there." The only person who stood up for me was a classmate named Kevin. His father was a police officer. Perhaps that's why he had such a strong sense of justice. He always intervened in bullying and was quick to help those in need. Kevin always helped me, making him the only bright spot in my otherwise terrible middle school days. As I reached the third year of middle school, it was time to decide on our future paths. Of course, I wanted to start working right after graduating from middle school. My father and mother worked hard every day despite their struggles, and I had younger brothers to think about. So, I decided not to pursue further education and to work for the sake of my family instead. While everyone was listing the high schools they wanted to attend, I was the only one who wished to get a job. Chris said he would attend a famous private boys' school in the prefecture. It was known for its high tuition fees, which made me realize how wealthy he really was. Kevin, being quite smart, wanted to go to the second best public high school in the prefecture. I always received help from Kevin, so I truly hoped he would get accepted. During the entrance exam season, while everyone was applying to high schools, I wasn't doing much. Well, I was preparing for employment, but I hardly did any studying at all. Eventually, Chris got accepted into the famous boys' school, and Kevin got into the high school of his choice. At the graduation ceremony, everyone seemed happy, but I think I was the only one with a gloomy expression. After all, while everyone else would be wearing brand new uniforms and attending high school in the spring, I was the only one starting work. Even though it was the path I chose, I couldn't help but wish I could have experienced high school life too. I heard from someone that the lovely Emily was going to a famous girls' school. She was quite smart, so it made sense that she chose a school with a high academic standard. And so, after the graduation ceremony, I started working in April. At work, I was always pushed around. Being young, I often got yelled at by the other workers. Entering the workforce made me realize how tough it could be. When the day to receive my first paycheck came, I was shocked when I saw the salary statement. It was much less than I had imagined. After deductions for social insurance and other expenses, my take-home pay was around $900. I thought maybe I would have been better off working part-time, but since I had secured a full-time job and heard that it would be difficult to find another job as a high school dropout, I decided to stick with it and do my best. Time flew by quickly. Before I knew it, I was 25 years old, commuting between work and home every day. Lately, I've been extremely busy, with little time to sleep, and most of my meals are bought from convenience stores. I kept thinking that living like this would eventually break me down, but surprisingly, my body was resilient. Although my parents were often sick, I rarely caught a cold and never had any serious illnesses. In a daze, I got up, turned on the kettle, and prepared for my morning coffee. It's always instant coffee in the morning because it's less hassle. While sipping my coffee and browsing the news on my phone, I received an email from my former classmate Kevin. It seemed that he was off duty today. He had followed in his father's footsteps and become a police officer. A sudden class reunion next month. I'm curious to see how everyone is doing. If you are coming, I'd like you to be there. Of course, no pressure, but it'd be great if we could go together. So, I replied. That's pretty sudden. So, have the place and time been decided? It's at a restaurant in New York called Hellman's. They were renting it out for the event. The date is the first Saturday of April, during Easter holiday. I have no plans that day, so I'm thinking of going. I see. I don't have any particular plans for that day either, so I'll go, but I probably wouldn't have gone if Kevin wasn't going. It's nice of you to say that. Well, I also want to see you, as we haven't met since then. Let's catch up at the reunion. And so, I decided to attend the reunion during Easter holiday. As I wasn't sure about the location of the restaurant, I met up with Kevin at the station and we went together. Kevin looked a bit tired as he had worked the day before, but I recognized him immediately, as he still resembled his younger self. Kevin, it's me, Michael. Hey, long time no see. How have you been? Man, yesterday was terrible, dealing with a drunk old man. He was vomiting all over the place. Being a police officer must be tough, but it's an important job, keeping the city safe. Well, I'm not on the career track, just a regular officer at a police box. I even failed to get into university. That's still impressive, Kevin. You're doing great. Kevin had failed to get into university and then took the police exam as a high school graduate, where he got accepted. His father, being a career officer, was apparently happy that Kevin had become a policeman. Kevin's family had a history in the police force, so it must have been gratifying for them that he followed in their footsteps. Then we arrived at the restaurant. It had a very stylish exterior, the kind of place women would like. I didn't have a girlfriend, but I thought if I did bring one here, she would surely be pleased. Inside, everyone had already gathered, and Chris was loudly chatting away. Noticing us, Chris smirked and said, Well, the university dropout and the high school dropout have arrived. Come on, you don't have to say things like that at a reunion. But it's true, isn't it? You were pretty smart, but it's a shame you didn't get into your first choice school. Well, I guess it just means I was way smarter. I graduated from the prestigious Brown University, and am working at the same trading company as my dad. I'm an elite, you know. I'm already earning nearly $90,000 a year. That's why I can live in a luxury apartment. Soon, I plan to move into a tower apartment. Is that so? And you, the bottom dweller, must still be living in poverty. What's with those lame clothes? Can't afford anything better. I'm wearing all designer brands. This is from Aramar, and my watch is Omega. Pretty cool, right? Stuff you guys could never afford. An elite like me has to wear such things. Sure, I'm not that interested in brand stuff, so do whatever you like. Keep pretending to be tough, loser. You're going to live as a bottom dweller for the rest of your life. Chris continued to brag about himself. He was already married, boasting about how beautiful and skilled his wife was in cooking, and how he could afford to have her as a full-time housewife. But the way he talked about letting her be a housewife irked me. There are various reasons why women become housewives, like mutual agreement or the challenges of childcare. Chris didn't have any children yet, and his remarks made me wonder if he looked down on women. He always seemed to think that all women must love him and took for granted that he was attractive. That's probably why he could make such comments about women. I thought any feminist would be furious hearing him speak. Hey, Emily, do you have a boyfriend? You're not wearing a ring, so you seem single. I'm quite busy right now, so I don't have a boyfriend. Maybe when things settle down, I might consider it. Really? Don't you want to snag a man like me, an elite? You know, I recently had a project approved that I proposed at work. My boss praised me a lot for it. It's practically a guaranteed promotion. After all, I am an elite, a graduate of Brown University. That's impressive. And as a reward, I bought the wallet I wanted. It cost $1,800, but that's normal for an elite like me. Working hard in a trading company. Wow, that's something. Emily, who was the school's queen, was still elegant and beautiful. In fact, she seemed even more refined than in middle school, almost like a young lady from a good family. I had heard that Emily's family was quite wealthy, but I didn't know exactly what her parents did. I guessed Emily wouldn't be interested in a nouveau rich like Chris. Moreover, Chris, despite being married, was flirting with Emily, which was truly distasteful. He kept boasting about his greatness, but Emily seemed utterly uninterested. Then Chris glanced at us and turned back to Emily, saying, "Do you know, this guy's annual income is only $9,000. I'm making $81,000 now, and it's almost reaching $90,000. It's so sad, isn't it? Being a high school dropout really puts you at the bottom." Hey, that's enough. Look, his parents were both part-timers living in a crappy apartment. Living in such a rundown place is just pathetic. When I lived abroad, my dad was an expat, and we stayed in a condo with a maid. I plan to be stationed abroad too and live in a luxury condo. I'll let my wife enjoy being an expat wife, and if we have children, I'll send them to international schools, just like I did. Stop it already. That's enough. I just wanted to leave. I had hoped to enjoy the reunion with Kevin, but it turned out to be too much. However, it suddenly started raining outside, and since I didn't have an umbrella, I decided to wait inside the restaurant for a while. About 15 minutes later, the other guys were excitedly talking about a luxury Mercedes that had pulled up in front of the restaurant. They had stepped outside for some air and were now making a fuss about the arrival of a black Mercedes, complete with a chauffeur. I went to the entrance of the restaurant. The chauffeur said, "Mr. Johnson, your car is ready," leaving Kevin and Chris surprised. "Wait, Johnson, are you talking about Michael?" "Yeah, I've been busy and couldn't get in touch, but I'm running a company now." "You're a president? Stop joking. How can you lie like that?" "It's no lie. You might know the company, a B Corporation." "That's our business partner." Not knowing the president of a partner company, that's just pathetic. I've always known that Chris was from BC Trading Company. After all, I've seen you coming in and out of our office. "What? I can't believe you're Johnson, the president of the major AB Corporation. I apologize for what I said earlier. Please don't report me to the headquarters. I don't mix personal grudges with business. Though, I might request to change the person in charge. By the way, Chris, I heard you've been unpleasant to our female employees." "What? I just received an email from that employee. This isn't personal. I'll be formally filing a complaint. It'll be interesting to see what happens next." I pulled out some money and handed it to Chris. Everyone was excitedly gathering around the Mercedes, but Emily stood composed and dignified. "Did you enjoy making fun of Michael, saying his annual income is just $10,000? She asked Chris. Chris was at a loss for words. "Well, that's because," Emily pressed, "where did you even get the idea that his income was $10,000? From the company he first joined. I heard the pay was low." Chris defended himself. Emily counted. "Didn't Michael work his way up from there? You have no idea how hard he must have worked. I'm fed up with her talk. I'm leaving." "Emily, Wait, I guess I'll head back too. Come on, Emily and Kevin, I'll give you a ride home. Chris was furious. Damn you, just disappear. I'm leaving anyway. It'll be interesting to see what happens to you, I replied coolly. I instructed the chauffeur to first drop off Kevin at his home. Then, I found myself alone with Emily, feeling somewhat awkward. I wasn't good with women and didn't know what to talk about. But I was genuinely glad that Emily had stood up for me. I had always found her beautiful and had secretly harbored feelings for her since middle school. However, coming from a poor family and being shabbily dressed, I never dared to approach her. Emily was intently gazing outside. Unable to do anything about the rain, I had called for a car. As Emily watched the rain beating against the window, she finally spoke. I knew you were a very hard-working person, Michael, Emily said. Really? I didn't think I did anything to make me seem that way, I replied. Remember when you cleaned the school and removed stains that others couldn't? Or when you helped with the script for the cultural festival when everyone else was about to give up? You always helped out. I thought you were very diligent, she explained. I didn't know you thought of me that way. I was just the poor guy who was always made fun of by Chris. He's still being mean to me, I said. Ignore people like that. They're probably insecure. I dislike show-offs who only care about looking good. I don't want to associate with such people, Emily advised. Yeah, you're right. Chris is still the same brooding guy. I don't want to become like him, I agreed. You won't. You're humble, even as a company president. A friend of mine from university works at your company. She says you're a kind and good president, Emily revealed. Really? I had no idea. Who is she? I asked, surprised. Sarah, my best friend from university, Emily answered. Ah, Sarah. She's a very capable employee. I had no idea there was a connection, I realized. To my surprise, among my company's employees was Emily's university classmate. I was a bit shocked as I hadn't known about this connection before. You never know how or where people are connected. That's why I've always believed in valuing relationships and treating people with care. I had saved money working at my first job after dropping out of middle school. While I contributed to my family's expenses, I managed to save most of my earnings, always being frugal. Eventually, I decided to pursue the job I had always wanted. I have always wanted to become a president one day to make life easier for my family. Motivated by the desire to repay my parents, I started my own business at a young age. At first, my business didn't turn much, but gradually, it began to grow exponentially. Its rapid success surprised everyone around me. I even started trading with Chris's company, BC Trading. Chris frequently visited my company, and I had been observing him all this time. However, Chris never realized I was watching him, nor did he know that I was the president. I thought it was common for people in business to remember the president of a partner company, but Chris seemed only interested in immediate profits. He had been harassing a female employee at my company, and I had just been informed about it. I planned to report him to B Trading and change our business representative. I even secretly hoped his wife would divorce him. Afterward, I dropped Emily off at her home. At the end, Emily asked to exchange phone numbers with me, and we did. Having never exchanged private messages with a woman before, I felt a bit nervous. Her face was a bit red, possibly from drinking. My face must have been red too, but not from alcohol, as I don't drink. It was probably because I was thinking about Emily, which made my face feel so warm. Later, I learned that because of my report to B Trading, Chris had faced personal consequences. I felt a bit of gloating. Emily later invited me out to dinner as a thank you for the ride. We met at the designated place, where Emily arrived in a vibrant dress with her hair up. I nervously wondered if this was a date. I had never been in a relationship in my 25 years. Unsure how to act during a meal with a woman, I became stiff and awkward. "Is there something wrong with the dish? It's my recommendation," Emily asked. "No, it's delicious. I was just lost in thought. Sorry for zoning out," I replied. "What were you thinking about?" she inquired. "Well, I can't really say," I hesitated. "I've been thinking a lot about a certain man lately," Emily confessed. "A man? Do you have a boyfriend? Then shouldn't you be with him instead? If he finds out, he might get angry." "I should leave," I panicked. "Don't be silly. I don't have a boyfriend. I never really wanted one. I've been busy with work, but lately, when I think about a certain classmate, my heart races," she revealed. "Is that about me?" I gasped. "That's about you," Emily said. She smiled mischievously and winked at me. I was taken aback. Was Emily always this playful? Emily, who had always been cool and kept to herself since middle school, was now smiling at me. And she even winked at me, which left me wondering what it meant. I was thrilled, realizing my feelings weren't unrequited. Soon, Emily and I started dating. I thought she was quite cool, but she also had a playful side, and that contrast captivated me. Her occasional girlish smiles were incredibly charming, making me feel happy. Realizing I was the only one who saw the side of her made me grin. It's almost been a year since Emily and I started dating. I went to our date location with the engagement ring I had chosen for Emily. Emily was waiting for me at the station and handed me a coffee. With Christmas approaching, the city was brightly decorated with illuminations. After enjoying some shopping with Emily, we headed to a high-end restaurant. It was a bit early, but it was the season to enjoy Christmas dinner. Emily had a business trip next week, so we decided to have our date today. At the restaurant, I quickly took out the box with a ring. "Emily, I chose this ring, thinking it would suit you. It's a token of my love. Please, will you accept it? Is this an engagement ring?" "Oh, I'm so happy. I didn't know I was valued so much, to be loved this much by you. Of course, you're my precious girlfriend. Emily, I want you to stay with me. I will cherish and care for you for the rest of my life, and I'll value our family. And of course, if we have children, I'll actively participate in parenting. So please, will you marry me? I love you too. Let's be together from now on. I'm looking forward to it." And so, Emily and I got engaged. I never thought I could have such ordinary happiness. I was disliked and poor as a child but managed to turn things around with my own efforts. But when I think about it, it wasn't just my own doing. Kevin, who always stood up for me, and my parents, who raised me with great effort, were always there for me. So, I decided to proudly tell Kevin and my parents about the engagement. When I informed Kevin by email, he was overjoyed. He even called me, crying with happiness for me. I was grateful to have such a good classmate, and I ended up crying too. "I'm so happy for you, marrying Emily. I want to attend the wedding. Be as happy as you can be, and never let go of Emily, no matter what happens," Kevin said. "Yay, I know. Thanks, Kevin. I was so happy when you helped me in middle school when Chris bullied me. I'm so lucky to have had a classmate like you." After that, we visited each other's families to inform them and gain their approval. We held our wedding ceremony. Kevin came and cried while congratulating us. He's really a sentimental guy. Since then, Emily and I have been living together, combining our strengths as a couple. I'm determined to take good care of my wife, Emily, who is now my life partner.